got granulating paints in your palette? What are you going to do with them? I'd like to thank the Process Art Discovery audience for joining me today. I'm Lynda Norman. I'm a watercolor artist in the beautiful province of British Columbia. Today in the studio we'll spend some time working with some beautiful granulating self-evolving paints and see how they'll perform while we create a vignette. I'm back with my Rockwell paints today. I just had so much fun with them the last couple of days, especially with the addition of the new colors to my palette. And so I've got my Bauhong Masters paper that I purchased from Watercolor online. It's a beautiful square block, and I understand that the square is the new thing. So I'm excited about doing more on the square. They do have to be custom matted. I have yet to find anyone that sells pre-cut square mats to size. When I do, I'll be able to tape the painting off to fit those custom or those pre-made mats. But for now, they're not available. So I'm just winging it. I'm taking a chance that I can paint as large as I can. And my good friend Roger from Art Framer here in the Okanagan will be able to cut that mat for me and make it extra special. These Rockwell paints have been such a joy. I've been, improvising and testing and playing and doing all kinds of things with them. I did a couple of little test pieces. Show you here. These were from a recent video. This one I added some pen to it. I love the granulation there. But what I really loved was when I played around with putting the saran wrap. We do sometimes wet the page with lots of rich pigment and then sprinkle some saran wrap and let it dry, and you get these beautiful lines and textures. And I was thinking that would be something fun to incorporate in the vignette. We've done that before, and it usually comes out quite nicely. So I thought maybe we'd do a combination on the square this time. Normally I paint on either a portrait or a landscape, more rectangular shape. And it's been a while since I've done a vignette, so I'm excited to get back to it and just explore these rich, beautiful pigments. So these are my original colors here. I've got Harvest Oracle and Morai Witch and Elfwing and Dragonfly and some beautiful rich colors there. And then the new colors that I received last week are the Valentine Purple and Jasmine, which is this luscious bright green, and Cherry Blossom. This is Blue Iris, and this is the Valentine Purple. It's actually more of a lavender in the palette, but it goes to this smoky blend, and because they're granulating, the pigmentation in these paints is breathtaking sometimes. You'll put the color down, and as they flow out into the water, different tones and different colors will appear, and it's really quite beautiful. There's a burnt ochre, and then the other one was called Lapis Brown, and that was something that that I thought was really exceptional. I'm just going to put a bit more of that, if I can find it, in my palette, because I've used it so much that I've run out. That's the Valentine Purple. And let me see, the names are just phenomenal. Lapis Brown. So Lapis Lazuli, which is, I guess, where that blue, there's just the very most subtle undershowing of a blue that comes out of this brown sometimes, and it's absolutely fabulous. I'm just going to put that in there. I'm going to put quite a bit because it's a color that I think I would really love to use. It looks almost like a sepia or a sepia when you take it out of the tube, but I think I've got enough of the other colors. As with our vignettes, we like to have the paints rich and thick and ready to be set into the water droplets on our page. And for those of you who maybe haven't seen or played with vignettes before, the premise is we'll splatter some water droplets, kind of randomly. We're not going to wet the whole page. If you wanted to do a background sky, you could certainly do a light wash and let that dry. But you run the risk then of, when you're adding your water droplets, of having blooms happen on that background. So I'm going to look at my little spray bottle. And this one is an adjusting end on it. And that's important. If you get the ones that, I don't have one here, but there's only 2 settings on or off, you get one consistent spray, and that's really not what we're looking for here. I'm looking for a spray that will kind of, what's a good word, spurtle. It'll spurtle out. It'll just give random droplets, no rhyme or reason, to where they fall. I do like to control that a little bit. And in the past we've done, just for design purposes, because I rarely sketch before I do anything, I would think of a letter of the alphabet or a number or something, just to get a shape happening so that we have a basis for our design. Okay. Now, having said that, probably a W would not work because you don't want anything dead center, either way, either that way or this way. So, I've done them with the letter C before. The letter L is always a good one. I've done a B. Let me think what else we could use to get the water droplets on there. Well, how about a J? It's just the opposite of the L. So we could certainly do that. The tendency often for us right-handers is to start on this side of the page and work this way because that's how we read. But we'll challenge that and we'll go the other way this time. So I want to test this. And we just want it to, if you can see that, it's going to go all over the place, of course. And we'll do the J up that side. Try to keep it at different angles. All right, looks like we've got a fair bit on there. I can add a bit more carefully as we go, but you have to be really vigilant. As I always say, you need to keep your head on a swivel when you're adding pigment to water. Sometimes it does want to go its own way. So I don't know if you can see that. There's a fair bit of water on there, some nice droplets. I like to sit back so I can sort of get a sense of where they are. And this is, yeah, it's got some nice water. It's looking like it's got enough on there. Typically for my vignettes, the way I do them, I like to use my Levinson goat hair, 1.5-inch goat synthetic blend brush. And you can see how this brush, when it's wet, if I can hold it down under the camera, it just comes to such a precise point. And it has been like that since the day I got it years ago. I just absolutely love it. Tracy Levinson, outside of Seattle, has a studio there where he hand makes these amazing brushes out of upcycled materials. We'll put the link in the description for you. So I've wetted my paints. They've had a chance to sort of sit and absorb a little bit of that. I've noticed that these self-evolving and granulating paints from Rockwell, these are the ones I'm using today, wet a little bit differently than the Daniel Smiths that I generally use. Different binders, perhaps. I'm not sure what Rockwell uses in theirs. I could research that. And different pigmentation. So we will see where this takes us today. I'm going to start with the Valentine Purple. And I'm just trying to loosen up the top of that dried paint there, just so I can get some on the tip of my brush. With this process, there's enough water on the page, the water droplets, that you don't really necessarily have to add a lot of water to the to your brush and to the paint. So I don't really want to add more. Let's see how this Valentine Purple. Ooh, plays out. Yeah, there's a lot of water on my brush. So these are going to take a bit of time to dry. But I'm liking how this color is looking on the page. I'm just going to make that treetop just a little taller. And these trees always remind me of the trees that you see in really weathered areas of the country, where they take a lot of beating from the wind and the snow and the rain and the harsh conditions. And they're a little bit wonky, but they are, to me, they're just so beautiful. Oh, I've got so much water trying to loosen that paint up that it is dripping and dropping all over my page here. So that's going to take a bit of time to dry. I might, once it's dried a little bit longer, further, I mean, I will, pardon me, maybe take that out a bit with a paper towel. So this tree is going to come down, I think, down to about, 2/3 of the way of the page. That way we keep from having that center bar thing happening. And then down here is where we'll add our saran wrap finish. So I kind of like how these are playing. Because it's a vignette and we're using water drops, these paints aren't going to really blossom out into their true potential until we get down into adding them on the bottom for the saran wrap application. Okay, because this is kind of going to, I have a feeling it's going to be almost tundra-like. We're not going to put a lot of trees in, I don't think. That's a fairly thick amount of paint on the tip of that brush. And let's see if we can get, there's a fair bit of moisture here. Let's see what this Lapis Brown does for us. It's almost a, from this angle it looks like almost a purpley brown, very dark and lovely. I'm noticing that it doesn't want to follow the water quite as readily as some of my other paints do. But it's getting there. It's trying. Let's do another one of those. Looks like I've got a little bit of droplets here. And we'll just put some tree shapes in. This other color, the burnt ochre, is a beautiful blend of oranges, and I'm just thinking what would happen if I added a tiny bit of that in there. See what we can do to brighten that little guy up. He seems a little, and I've got him crooked, so I'm going to change him and add a little bit of this just to straighten out the bottom. Add a bit more on this side to make it look there. I like that. I like that the burnt ochre is coming to the rescue there and adding a bit to that. Some of these droplets are already drying, which is fine. We can add more. I just don't want to add any onto where we have our existing trees. If you find that this happens, and it will because your paper is going to absorb that water, and it just takes a little bit of time, really. It doesn't take long for it to start soaking right in and disappearing. You can always add some little drops with your brush, and they can be more directed. often I like to do a background. Yeah, we're just going to add a bit more, I think, of the purple, and get some little wonky shapes in the background. It's nice that the colors, you can see here where they're kind of blending together. These paints all play well together. They really do look, I think, very, very beautiful. And if they join together and form little blends and partnerships, all the better. In fact, I'm going to add some right on top of that and blend that in. So it's nice to kind of have, you know, the idea that some of them are just kind of peeking out of the background here. And we'll add just a few more of these purple trees. Pigment is lighter and darker in some spots. I love that these can touch each other and sort of blossom together and create sort of their own little forested world. Don't know if you can see how beautiful these colors are working together. The burnt ochre and the lapis brown. And I think with the lapis brown, if I was to go in to these burnt ochre trees and just very briefly touch in a little bit of the dark, it would add to the texture of those trees too. Let's see if we can get a few more of these little guys down here, and then we'll start on that bottom. So we're making the base of this, or the backbone of this letter J, quite wide, but it gave us a starting point. It gave us a place to get that water down, and try to make these trees all a little bit varied in height. And I think we'll put one more with a dark base perhaps back in here. Just touching the pigment into those little water drops along the side. You can add a few into that purple tree. Pardon me, that Valentine Purple. Okay. I think some of this is actually going to become landfall and rockfall. I didn't care for how the tree, as it got larger, looked with those sort of lines there. So I'm going to wet that, and I'll use a bigger brush in a second. I just want to see how, if I wet this, how the pigments will sort of fall down in, and you can see where the you know, where the lapis brown and the burnt ochre, if I add a bit more pigment there, how that will sort of flow down into these wet areas. I love that. I love that luscious sort of flow of the pigments coming down. I think for the underbrush, I'm going to do just a little more of that dark. And I'm just randomly blotting in color, scribbling in color, pigment rather. These will become smaller trees and bushes in the foreground. And they will, I'm just going to tip this just slightly and let it run. And some of those runs will be picked up with the Saran once we get that on there. So I'm going to, while that's still quite wet, I wonder if I need to put more trees on this side. I think I will. And I'm going to go back with my spray bottle. Because I'm not adding more there, I'm just going to add a few more to this side and see which ones work out for some, just a tree or two on this side. We'll bring them perhaps a little closer to the front. And again, we'll just let these pigments flow out on their own. These will be a little more purple, I think. We'll see. It's interesting, the Valentine Purple. Before I opened the tube, I was expecting it to be a vibrant, deep, almost a reddy purple, a maroon purple. So I was pleasantly surprised to see this almost a lavender color. The only other lavender I have in my palette is almost an opaque. It's quite thick and chalky looking. So I'm enjoying this, the lightness of this one. And let's see, we've got some nice little water droplets happening up there. Let's give these little wonky trees a little bit of shape. And then let's go in with, oh, that is too much water on that. I should have dried my brush. I just want to touch some of the Lapis Brown into this purple. Give them a bit of a tree shape. You know, I'm not big on the detail. I like to leave things to the imagination, and as I see things happening, you know, I can create suggestions of real, but yeah, I like to just really have lots of options and imagination. And I've said before, you know, people will say, oh, you know, I see this or I see that in your paintings, and you know, most often that was not, you know, not my intention to have anything really showing in there. I can see where this lapis brown is kind of faded out in that center part there, and that's telling me that I can maybe just add a little bit of this burnt ochre. Who knew that would be such a glorious color? And I love that it's brightening that section up. It's brightening that lapis brown, which is very, very dark, almost a black gray background or base to it. And it's just almost like it's calling it out to play, and you know, showing you what beautiful things can happen when you get this color working through. And I'm just going to spread some of that out so that it looks like we've got some nice little branches happening. Put a couple more tree shapes in here. You know, I'm not used to painting with the ochres and the browns so much. My palette's always been blues and greens and a bit of yellows and purples. So this is fun, it's new, and it's exciting. So I did say we maybe could blot some of this out. The page is starting to buckle a little bit. I'm pretty generous with the water. So I'm just going to use just the very tip of the paper towel, and just if I sit back, I can really see where some of the heavier blots of water might be. And I think I love that this purple background is happening. And I think I just want to make a little more purple in the background. It'll act as a bit of shadow, but also not a dark shadow. It'll be a shadow where you can almost glimmer a little bit of light coming through. And we just kind of eliminate some of those really stark white spaces. And we can do that over here a little bit too. All right. Now I'm kind of enjoying how this happy little accident happened. So it looks like I've got a bit of a reflection there. So this might end up, who knows, once we get our saran wrap on, this might end up as perhaps a bit of a lake area. And I just, because I've got those beautiful background marks in the purple there, I'm just going to add some tree shapes just in the front a little tiny bit, let them flow out. Yeah, so that is fairly wet. I really want to make sure that I'm not adding a lot of extra water to my page. So I'm just using the very, very tip of my brush. And we'll define just a couple of tree shapes to help get this background working. And I love that how the ochre is really working nicely with this purple as well. All right. Yeah, I think it just takes a little bit of getting to know your paints. As I say, it's always about building the relationship. So it'll be some time to for me to really dial in these beautiful paints. But I can see where they really want to talk to you. They really want to tell you what they want to do. And if you pay attention to that, I think you can build that relationship fairly quickly. So we'll just add just a little bit of color here and there, just indicate a bit more trees. I think what I've got going on there is a bit much. So I'm just dabbing out a tiny bit, and I dab this sort of intermittently, so that gives me sort of a chance to let it look like there's a bit of play of sunlight or shadows coming through those tree shapes. All right, so I think I've done enough for the trees at the moment. Now, having said that, I see I've dropped a color there that I really don't want to turn into a bird. So, we have options. We do birds or we do trees. And today I'm putting another tree in there, fixing up this little area a tiny bit. That's a really beautiful blend of those colors too. Just a lot lighter pigment from the burnt ochre. And we'll just use the side of my brush and just blend a little bit of those colors together. This is still moving, this area here that was still quite wet. And I'm going to switch brushes now. I do want to have quite a large cliff rock forming area, and maybe, like I said, maybe a lake over here. We'll work on that once we get there. But this is where I want to start getting the pigments down, getting the water in, and then getting ready to lay the saran wrap on top and let that dry. So we'll have to come back to that once we get that done. Now this is my Ron Ranson ProArt hake brush. I tried to order another one recently, and they're not available. I'm hoping that I can at some point find another. This is, it's an amazing brush. It's, other hake brushes are, they look similar, but they're much softer. This one has just a bit of a coarser bristle, and when it's dried or semi-dry, there's a lot of room on the end for stippling. But if you need to have a sharp edge, it can also come to a fairly nice edge for that as well. And it holds a ton of water. And this water is is going on sort of just dibs and dabs. I'm not going to, I don't think I want to lay the whole thing with water. And I want to be very careful here. I love these shapes and how these trees are sort of looking like they're reflected in something there. So I'm not sure I want to do much in that area with water. It's still a bit on the damp side. So I'm just going to add water to the edge around that. And similar here, these pigments are still wanting to flow and move quite nicely. And I love that there's these little pockets of white where the paper is still dry. and that for me is, it just makes it look more organic. I love it. So I'm going to, yeah, the water is pooling. I can see that because the paper has rippled a tiny bit. And I think I'm going to go back to my Lebens and Goat Hair Synthetic Blend brush, just because I know it can pick up a really heavy load of rich dark pigment. And I'm going to, actually, you know what? I'm going to start with the Valentine Purple. And I'm going to pick up as much of that. I'm going to load the brush. I don't normally do this with my brushes, but I want to pick up as much of that as I can, and I want to get it into the water on the page. I want it to move around. It'll look like glacier rocks or water. We're not sure yet. And that to me is one of the things I love about watercolor. There's kind of a bit of a mystery for it. So this Valentine Purple is, oh, that's quite thick. The tail end of that in the palette there. I'm waiting for my new palettes to arrive so I can load them with these great pigments. And I'm not going to be concerned about the bottom edges here either. As with all vignettes, I kind of like them to be sort of organic and unusual and moving around. Just want to add a bit more thick pigment. This is quite wet in here, so we'll see where that ends up. Mostly the blues. I love how the burnt ochre is sort of coming down there. We'll see what that creates. And so if I just, without any real thought to how this is going to end up, I just want to add some color. And then a little bit of the dark. And I can see where that is just moving like crazy on this page. I just, this is so much fun. All right, let's try. See what happens. So I got pull these pieces off earlier, quite large. And as I'm laying them on, you can see the fractured look of how the pigments sort of follow the creases in the saran. Plastic wrap, I guess. Not everybody calls it saran, right? And I took another piece, I wanted to be safe rather than sorry. Crush this one up. Get some interesting textures happening here. And I want to bring this one right up into the base of those trees. This is absolutely gorgeous the way those colors are blending together. The palette that was put together with these colors was called the Lorraine Simons palette. The three main colors, the burnt ochre, the blue lapis brown, I should say, and the Valentine Purple. And I think she uses those in her portraits, watercolor portraits, which is something again. Oh my gosh. So this is, I think, where we're going to leave this for now. We're going to let it dry. And we've got a good basis happening. And I'll be back with the final touches to this vignette with some fractured rock and landscape. All right, this has had a few minutes to sit and dry. It's going to take a bit more for it to become completely dry, but it's at a stage now where I can take the plastic wrap off and see what has transpired. I love doing this. It's like it's unwrapping a gift every time. Oh. Now I can see there's still quite a bit of deep pigment sitting there, damp. That's where I had a lot of water. I'm just going to just lay that on the surface. I'm not taking much off, just a little bit of the excess. I love just exploring and seeing what the pigments have done on their own while they were sitting off to the side drying. And this is absolutely stunning. This could even evolve into a waterfall at some point. It's a bit buckly. I would hesitate to go in at this point with a pen, but that's certainly an option as well. An archival black ink pen, any color ink, I suppose, if you wanted to, just to enhance some of the tree trunks. This part here, I probably could have either added more plastic wrap, or we'll go in and define those a tiny bit more. But I think, you know, what I'm going to do at this point in time is just, where's that brush? Let's try this one. And let me, hang on one second. Bit break. I forgot to bring the paints back. Sorry. All right. Now I've got my paints back. I'm ready to just add a tiny bit more. I'm not going to touch any of this area. I want to leave that. I think I'm pretty happy with all of that. I may go in at some point. I like to sit with my paintings. Sometimes I'll take a photograph and step away from the studio, have a cup of tea or make dinner, and then open up my photos and have another look at the painting. It gives me fresh eyes. I can see where, oh my gosh, I didn't see that before. I can see where that needs to be changed, or I love that and I need to enhance a different part of the painting. But what I wanted to try on this, because it is a learning process for all of us, is to just see if I can't maybe use my plastic tab technique just to bring some of this this forested area with a bit of formed rocks to blend into this. We'll see how that looks. It may not be the optimum way to go, but we'll give it a go. So I'll start with my dark Lapis Brown. Oops, sorry. Didn't mean to. And I just want to make this look like it's, you know, some rocks perhaps cascading down. The part that I thought was going to look like trees reflected in water did not work. The the pigments and the water had had their own ideas under that plastic wrap. You see, you turn your back and they do things that you're not expecting. So I'm going to cover some of that with perhaps some rocks that will cascade down into this. I'm not sure yet if this will go even further. Maybe it will. I also want to think about this transition here and what that needs to look like. And that might simply be a case of just adding more of that Valentine Purple. But I've got my nice basis there with the brown, Lapis Brown, and the burnt ochre. Lay a tiny bit of that on the surface. And I'm going to have to add some more Valentine Purple soon to my little palette here. I'm running out. But it will hopefully add a little bit. We'll see where that goes. Plastic tab. And we'll let it sit for just a moment. Let that soak in. The paper is still a bit dampish, as I said, so the pigment that I've added will soak in probably quite nicely there. Make some nice big rock shapes, kind of irregular where I can, and a little cliff falling down. And then I want to see what will happen with this Lapis Brown if I add more water to the page and allow it to gently flow over. So this fractured background now is becoming the basis for this pigment that can flow down. And I will add some more of the burnt ochre as well, because I think that's got some potential for some nice blending. So this is becoming quite different from what I had envisioned, but I love that. I love that can happen, and that we can allow that to happen, and that the paints will dictate so much of what we've got going. I'm going to leave this. I love the dry brushed kind of look to it. But this is, it's pooling here because of the paper has changed shape a tiny bit. And I will tip it just for a moment. I'll turn it around so you can watch the magic happen. So these pigments are coming down, lightly washing over the top. So it's like a second wash, but you can still see some of that fractured design in the background from the plastic wrap. And we'll just finish some of these right off to the bottom and some not. All right. And this is where the very dark lapis is, quite thick. And I just want that to come down in small pieces. All right. And last but not least, I think I'm going to leave that because I think after it dries, it's going to give me that sense of depth, and it'll be quite beautiful. And the last thing I want to tackle on this, I think at the moment, is just this transition area here. And I mentioned I would try to do something with the Valentine Purple. We'll see how that looks after having that that plastic wrap, changing the design there. It's I'm trying to make this as straight as possible, but of course the paper is buckled, so I may have to go in afterwards and adjust some of that as well. But I think that, and also if I had thicker pigment, it would be darker. But I think we can just, now that I've laid that water across, I can just dab some of this Valentine Purple into these areas and encourage it to sort of blend and mix with some of these other colors. There, that's a bit richer. Okay. So I think I'm happy with that. The other thing I might only do, I think, would just be to just encourage this to be a little bit more of a defined area for this hillside coming down. And a little bit at the base of that tree coming up. And I can see where, this once it's dry, this might have to become another little tree shape or something, and we'll jut the landscape out a little bit more. So I can see where, on this paper especially, the lapis blue is probably a bit darker than I needed on those rocks. But it does give a nice definition, and some of it did pull away quite nicely. And we'll give the odd little flick with the plastic just to give the indication of another shape of a rock forming up. A little bit of lightness. It will continue to move while it's drying. But I think I'm kind of happy with that. It reminds me of kind of a tundra, windswept, rough, rugged kind of area that we see so much especially in our northern climates. Yeah, I really enjoyed having this playtime with the Rockwell self-evolving paints. So I, used the brown lapis, the Valentine Purple, and the burnt ochre. Only 3 colors in this painting. And the plastic wrap, the vignette style, and I sort of, rather than let the vignette from the paint pigment from the trees run down, I changed that with a little bit of plastic wrap. I love that the wash of the colors on top of the plastic wrap pattern kind of gave that another level of intensity, and lots to the imagination here with the colors, with the purple and the burnt ochre creating forms and shapes. And I think I'm happy with this at the moment. If I have any more brilliant ideas on it, I will readdress it in another video. But I think for now I'm I'm happy with this. I'm ready to let it dry and maybe take a look at getting a mat for it and see what that does to it. I'd like to thank the Process Art Discovery audience for joining me today. I certainly had fun playing with these Rockwell paints. Some different techniques, a vignette, some plastic wrap, some washes. I'm quite happy with these beautiful pigments. If you like what you've seen, please subscribe to the channel or head on over to the members area.